Recently, the He-Man fan base was shattered with the news that Mark Taylor had passed away. For those of you not familiar with his work, Mark was one of the prelim artists on the Masters of the Universe He-Man line at Mattel. And a lot of people have asked me about doing a video on Mark's work, and what got me thinking was Midnight's Edge actually did a really great video recently about the barbarian origins of He-Man, putting the pieces together.
What do you think of my desk? I made it myself. And I have all these pieces left.
So what I want to kind of do is do a quick recap, or rather a recap of the recap that Midnight's Edge did. If you haven't seen the full video, I definitely suggest checking it out. Essentially, the channel looked at the origins of Masters of the Universe of He-Man in 1982 and put together a few pieces that have been out there, but I don't think they've been fully explained. It's kind of like a hodgepodge. You know, this is actually hodgepodge. That's what it is. It's a food. Anyway, one of the things covered, and it reflects some things I've mentioned on this channel, is about the New Gods line Mattel worked on, that essentially the designs became all of the vehicles and the armor and the look of Masters of the Universe. When a company, a creative anything, is working on something for a long period of time, and then it gets pulled, more or less, all that work that went into it, well, the artists don't want to feel like it was wasted, and you can definitely see how all of the work done for the New Gods Fourth World line at Mattel from the early 80s essentially went into Masters of the Universe, as did other drop concepts like Iron Jaw from the Big Jim line that never made it to market. But again, much like the Fourth World line, a lot of work was done on this figure. And that's why designs like this get recycled and released, in this case, as Trapjaw in the Masters of the Universe line. When you do that much work on something, yeah, you want to see some kind of payoff. So why was Mattel doing all of this? Well, it was in reaction to Star Wars. Star Wars had recently come into the aisle for the kids.
Oh, won't somebody please think of the children?
And Mattel wanted to do something for the kids, too. In fact, they wanted to do something that would be even more attractive for the kids. And looking at how successful Star Wars had become with figures, vehicles, playsets, etc., and it was really dominating the toy aisle, the decision was made that Mattel would create their own boys' action line that could compete with Star Wars that they had regrettably passed on. Well, everyone passed on it, but Mattel did too. So this turned into the original He-Man trio, which represented three different sort of play zones: military, barbarian, and space. And heck, if space or barbarian, or space, or military was chosen, He-Man might have become a very different thing. Tank Top might have been our main hero, going around blasting bad guys. Well, barbarian theme won out, and where Masters of the Universe truly took off was the Filmation series, and Midnight's Edge again did a great job summarizing this. But some of the new information that they put forward, some little nuggets of information, I feel like really tie together a lot of the story that we've gotten bits and pieces of in the past. So, for example, in the video, Midnight's Edge talks about how Emiliano Santalucia, I hope I'm not mispronouncing your last name, Emiliano, he's a very well-known, very, very talented comic book and toy artist, a lot more talent than I have for drawing, and he mentioned specifically that this drawing, which for years we've talked about as being one of the proto-drawings for He-Man, is not a drawing of He-Man, but is actually a drawing of Conan that was done for Mattel as part of the pitch to get the Conan license. Now, if this is true, well, it brings new information.
That is brand new information!
And it kind of means that if that is not a sketch of He-Man, but rather a sketch of Conan, it sheds a different perspective on Mattel, both A, looking at acquiring the Conan license, and two, has Mattel been producing Conan action figures disguised as Vicron for the past few years? I mean, who knows? But that's a debate for another time.
True.
Now, my experience with that original artwork was finding it at Mattel in this very envelope, which was marked Male Action Figure Study. It was actually a color version, a photocopy of the original art, and also inside this envelope was the art that is also better known as Demo Man, the Skeletor concept art. There were quite a few pieces of art that morphed into He-Man, shall we say, and Mark Taylor worked on quite a lot of them. Here he is with two of the pieces behind him, so we know, factually where these came from. But the artwork of Vicor that supposedly maybe a picture of Conan by Mark Taylor as opposed to a picture of a sort of proto He-Man puts a very different spin on the original brand and the whole controversy of whether or not Masters of the Universe is a rehash of Conan the Barbarian. And like I said, if it is, then Mattel's been making unlicensed Conan the Barbarian action figures for a few years, even taking this character, Vicor, and sticking him in the new animation. So maybe they have a lot to talk about with Conan Enterprises. I don't know. I wasn't there. But yeah, I could see how this illustration does look a lot like versions of Conan, especially with the horns on the head and the axe and the brown or the flowing black hair. So yeah, the fact that people have been saying Vicor looks a lot like He-Man or a lot like Conan, maybe it is because it was supposed to be Conan. So what's this all about? What's going on with Mattel and Conan in the 80s? So to understand that, we have to go, not this Conan, this Conan, Conan the Barbarian in the 80s. So it was set up to be a huge thing, and Mattel did look at Conan, but the story that I was always told was that once they read the script and realized that it was bloody and full of, adult situations, that they passed on it. And it was kind of like two different, windmills there. One working on He-Man, one looking at the Conan script. But what Midnight's Edge brings up is the fact that Mattel may have actually been trying to outsmart their opponents with the Conan license. So what he states, the assumption, Midnight's Edge, is that Mattel looked at acquiring Conan to squash the competition. In other words, they purposely, this was the assumption from Midnight's Edge, wanted to tie Conan up with so much red tape that no other company could get it. Now, I can't confirm or deny that at all. I was not at Mattel in the 80s when this happened. But if you look at, even modern documentaries about the toy industry and specifically about Mattel, and I could draw your attention to the Toys That Made Us on Netflix, if you watch the Barbie episode, not only will you be able to answer questions like, what the heck is that thing behind Jail Barad? But other than that, yeah, she and other Mattel executives talk about how vicious things were in the 80s and how much they worked to squash the competition by outflanking Jem and the Holograms with Barbie and the Rockers. And knowing that Mattel, that's how they treated Jem with Barbie, that was their way of answering the competition, maybe they did the exact same thing with He-Man. Now, it's not uncommon for companies to do this, to buy up lots of things simply just to hold on to them. Movie studios do this all the time. They will buy a script not with the intention of making the movie, but the intention of just keeping it under wraps and preventing one of their competitors from making the movie. Maybe because it's too close to something they are doing themselves and they want to own the market. So I thought it was really interesting that Midnight's Edge brought this up because while I don't have any definitive proof that this was the strategy, we look at He-Man and the Masters of the Universe like great art. To us, it's one of the greatest toy lines ever made. It's a piece of fine plaything, shall we say. But it's looking more and more that the creation really was kind of about dumping out the toy box and whatever was around, be it New Gods or big Jim concepts that never made it to market. They were all kind of just thrown together into Masters of the Universe as almost a Frankenstein-esque toy with different parts from different lines. I mean, heck, even the tigers and the eagles were repaints from Big Jim. But Frankenstein doesn't have to be a mess. He can be fine art too. Just because something is, Frankenstein together doesn't mean it can't be amazing. And that really is what Masters of the Universe is all about. It started off as one thing, but through the work of many, many different artists and creators, the animated shows plural, something that started off as a drawing that then became an action figure that looked a lot less like the drawing, could then become an action figure based on the drawing. I mean, that's what Masters of the Universe is all about. There's no mistakes, just happy accidents. And I thought what Midnight's Edge did, pulling everything together, was worth reflecting on. I hope you like this too. If you have any other questions or want more details, you want me to discuss it in further or in other ways, let me know in the comments below. I try to read every comment I can. Please do like, share, follow this channel. It's a great way to show support. I love doing more videos about the origins of brands, and let me know your thoughts in the comments below.